welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about complexity, which is an important but tricky subject for a young business. Every business naturally becomes more complex as it evolves, and it should. That's the right thing to do. Growing your business naturally means that it becomes more complex for good reasons, because you're learning more, because you're following the customer, because you're learning to do things right. So, for example, you're offering your products and somebody wants it in blue or a larger size, and you think maybe other people would like that as well. So you add that. Additional channels, another great way to expand your reach. Somebody says they'd like to resell your product or they'd like to represent your service. Great. You can reach a whole new audience of customers without a whole lot of extra effort. Marketing's another area. You start out and things are going okay, but somebody says you ought to be on Pinterest or TikTok, so you add that. Or one of your partners says, why don't you produce this kind of brochures or go to this trade show? Great idea coming from an expert. Then there's operations. This is an area where none of us knows what we don't know until we launch. So you make a few mistakes, you add to the procedures, you make sure you're not going to make that mistake again. Meanwhile, as you're adding these other products and distribution channels, each of them has some operational tasks that are needed. All of these things are great. They're the way businesses grow, but they can easily overwhelm you. And that's because complexity multiplies. Each of these new activities that you undertake is just more things that you have to do and more things competing for your time, for your staff hours, for your limited resources. You're still small. You can do more, you're growing, but you can't do it all. Honestly, some of those decisions that you made in the heat of the moment aren't necessarily keepers. That's fine, you tried it. Some may be great ideas, but maybe they're not right for you now. The important thing is that for each of these products, activities, channels, all the pieces have to be able to work together. If you've got a great marketing idea, but it's supporting only a product that's not a keeper, you got to rethink that. So this session is really going to talk about how do you untangle yourself. You want to start with the products. By now, probably your lineup has grown, and that's a good thing. But really take a look at them. Which do you need? You've tried selling in different methods, using different channels. Which is working? You're marketing on different platforms. You've got multiple messages out there. Which is best representing the company that you have today and where you want to go? And then operations. Do you have the right operations supporting the right products and activities? You really want to understand the true cost, and we're going to talk more about this, of all your products and channels. So let's start with products. It can feel like having more products means you'll get more sales. There's more things for customers to choose, right? Well, yes, but customers can also get confused or overwhelmed. It also means that your sales and marketing efforts have to support too many things. It may be hard to zero in on the places that are really valuable. And it might not help your brand. If you're selling all these different services and you've got different marketing messages, how does a customer really know who you are, what you stand for? And then there's the operational cost of supporting it. So you really want to think of, where is the value? There's a well-known rule called the 80-20 rule, which says that 80% of your revenues come from 20% of your products or services. That may not be exactly right for you, but it's often the case. So really look at the things that are driving growth and profitability for you now. That doesn't mean you need to get rid of all the others. They may have value. They may support those other products. They may be areas that you're testing for future growth, but understand what the value is. Then you really want to ask yourself, which are costing more in complexity than they generate in value? One easy way to start is, if you could sell only 3 things, what would they be? Figure out what you really want to sell and why, and that's probably going to give you a good indication of where you want to go. A similar thing happens with sales channels. Extending your sales channels is great. It can really help broaden the reach of a young business. It can give you greater visibility, but each adds cost and complexity. A lot of times you justify that by saying, well, they're bringing in revenues. We don't want to focus as much on revenues as overall profitability. So, how much effort does the channel require? Effort means time, and time is money. So if something's taking a lot of work, it may not be as valuable as you think it is. Is it really adding to your customer base, to your brand awareness? Maybe it did at first, but maybe now you can reach those customers on your own. And the key question is it helping you grow? If it's not helping you grow, it may not be the right channel for you anymore. This is an area, like many of these complexity questions, where your gut feeling may be a great indicator. So ask yourself, which channel would you miss least if it disappeared? Oftentimes, you feel bad about them because in your gut, you know they're not as profitable as you think. Now, marketing. Marketing obviously is crucial to building a business, but it takes a lot of time, it takes effort, it takes money. It's hard to know exactly what marketing messages or platforms are working. So, first, take a look at all these messages that you're disseminating on all these platforms, which tell your story the way you want it told. That doesn't mean that you need to eliminate the others. Perhaps you harmonize them so they're telling the story, but that's a very important starting point. The next one is to look at how many platforms and channels you're actually on. Do you need them all? What are you using them for? Who are they reaching? And does that still make sense? What activities have you been driven to for competitive reasons, for partnership reasons, not because they have a fundamental business reason for you? And then lastly, if you had to eliminate one marketing activity, what would it be? Similar to the last question about channels, this can be a case where your gut is telling you the truth. If something feels like it's just too much effort for what it's contributing, the chances are that may be the case. So focus on the message and the channels that best represent your brand to the customers you want to reach. Now, we've talked a lot about cost, and that's because it's important and it's a hard thing to analyze. A lot of times people focus on the revenue that each activity or channel brings in. Great, that's a good starting place. But you certainly want to look at the direct costs to provide that service, that product, or support that activity. It really doesn't stop there. There are all the operational costs, logistics, training your people, supporting the channels, supporting the subcontractors who may be helping you, all that is cost as well. There are the hidden costs, confusion, questions, training problems. All of these take up time. Time is money, but also if they're confusing, they can lead to a greater likelihood of errors. And errors not only cost you money, they can have a harmful effect on your brand and business. So, really start by asking which products are most likely to confuse employees, to generate questions, to cause errors, because those may be the places where you have more complexity than you need. As always, a lot of this starts with you as the business owner. You probably helped create this complexity, again, for very good reasons, because it was a way to grow your business. But now you need to take the lead in rolling some of it back. So once you've identified some of these areas that seem overly complex, ask yourself, are you holding on to it because it's working? That doesn't mean that there aren't some tweaks or improvements you can make, but working is good. It's how you've always done things. That's less satisfying. That might indicate an area where you really want to take a harder look. But oftentimes the answer is you know that it needs fixing and you don't have the time. And that's understandable. You've got so many more pressing issues with customers, with services, with products. But now that you've seen the cost of complexity, hopefully you understand that reducing complexity is just as pressing and requires your focus as well. If you're afraid of cutting things back, ask yourself, What's the worst that could happen if you simplified your product lineup, if you simplified operations? You may identify some real risks, work around them, but probably it's not as bad as you think. Another way to look at it is if you started today, what would you build? What products would you keep? What channels would you sell through? What marketing activities would support those? And how would you operationally support it all? One big question is, what's one cut you can make now? It doesn't have to be a big one. Something that's been bugging you, something you're really pretty sure you don't need to be doing. Take a look at it and see if you can cut that. And we've got a full list of questions to help you work through and address the complexity in your business at this address. As always, if you can find others to work with, that's helpful. They might be able to identify things in your business you don't see, and vice versa. If you don't have people you can work with us. Send us your comments, we'll share them back. Our next module, we're going to focus on pricing. Is your pricing working for you? So subscribe to our YouTube channel down below, or better yet, sign up for our newsletter at paddlingfuriously.com/newsletter to get all our questions and all our information for growing and strengthening your business. See you next time.